listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans, and how are you today? And thank you for listening to DolphinsTalk.com Daily. I am your host, Tom Ernessy. Jam-packed show here on Monday. We got a lot to discuss after today's practice. Again, closed to everybody, but Mike McDaniel spoke to reporters. The players spoke. On today's show, we're going to talk about the team captains. They were announced for the 2024 season. We're going to talk about some massive updates on key players as they head into week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going to talk a small amount about Chris Brooks, how he's most likely not going to be back with the Dolphins anytime soon. And we're going to get into a small preview of the Jacksonville Jaguars game on Sunday. But before we get into any of that, a big shout out to our sponsor, Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, the Miami Hurricanes, your Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college sports teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a birthday gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel, located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, and Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? No worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they'll ship to you. International fans too. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com, Caneswear.com. Also, a shout out to everybody listening over at finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet, as well as everyone listening over at the Facebook group, the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook group run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, be sure to check them out. All right, let's get into the topics of today's show. We're going to open up with the team captains, which were announced today. Those captains are quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, defensive back Jaylen Ramsey, wide receiver Tyreek Hill, linebacker David Long Jr., fullback Alec Ingold, offensive tackle Teron Armstead, defensive lineman Zach Sealer, and defensive lineman Calais Campbell. Those are your 2024 voted on team captains, and they were voted on, of course, by their teammates. So those guys will be the ones taking the ceremonial coin tosses, and just they are the leaders of the group, so to speak. So Mike McDaniel, when he was talking about particularly David Long Jr., he mentioned how much this really meant to David Long Jr. for being named a team captain, how much he loves football. So there is, of course, a lot of good things that come out of being named a team captain of your favorite football team in mind, the Miami Dolphins, and David Long Jr. is not taking this lightly, which is great to hear. Now, let's get into the bigger topics of the show. We got some player updates. Massive player updates as we head into week 1. A little worrisome from many folks, from the beat, from the other podcast networks, including ourselves, and obviously you, the fans. A lot of concern with the injuries. We did not see any ounce of Jaylen Waddle outside of wearing a red contact jersey. Tyreek Hill damaged up his hand against the Bucs at their joint practice. So some worrisome stuff with the wide receiving group with those two out. Not only that, Jaylen Ramsey still not practicing. or hasn't practiced very much over the last few weeks. Aaron Brewer broke his hand. So again, a lot. Well, let's reverse course now, and let's talk about the good that came out of today's press conference. And the good that came out of today's press conference is, in fact, wide receiver Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle, no setbacks at practice. They were full participants today. Granted, we're not going to get anything on paper until Wednesday when the first injury report gets released. But both of those men were full go in practice. No setbacks with Jalen Phillips. The other big news, Aaron Brewer is back at practice as well, so he is handling the snapping duties with quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, and they've got some ground to make up before week 1. There were struggles early in camp with snapping with Aaron Brewer and Tua Tagovailoa. They've got to get that rectified, but they've had about 3+ weeks apart from each other, so the cadences and everything else will need to be worked out, but it is great news to see Aaron Brewer back on the field, which means Liam Eichenberg slides back over to right guard, most likely to start because, again, Jack Driscoll was released, or they start Lester Cotton. However, I think Andrew Myers is the backup center here for the Dolphins now, and I think they feel really comfortable with him as the backup. So Liam is going to get the job at right guard. Thoughts and prayers to Tua. Hopefully nothing major could happen to him with that news coming out. Now, another player that has missed quite a bit of time was Benito Jones. He is also back at practice. So he is ramping up. Not sure how much or how long he'll be practicing for this week, but he is ramping up. There might be an opportunity that he plays against the Jaguars on Sunday. Time will tell. But all in all, great injury news. It looks like the team is healthy heading into the regular season. But there is a caveat. The one caveat is that Jalen Ramsey once again sat out of practice. This has been a common occurrence for the last few weeks. This is a little bit different of a week, though. This is game week. So we'll see what he does. This could have been a vet rest day. He was seen stretching with his teammates with no helmet. And then he was basically back in street clothes, hanging out with the coaches, watching the team run through drills and practice for the day. Hopefully that changes Wednesday. We see him as at least a limited participant, or at least shows that it's a vet rest day and it's nothing concerning any sort of injury his way. But again, on Wednesday, the first official injury report for the season will come out, and we'll take a look and see what everything looks like. Let's talk about Chris Brooks. Dolphin fan favorite. People like Chris Brooks. I like Chris Brooks. Obviously, Jalen Wright a lot more than Chris Brooks. And, he was injured in the Washington game after a massive run. I believe it was 1 or 2 plays later. He was hit. He was concussed. He was released by the Miami Dolphins during cutdowns, and he was not picked back up on waivers after he passed through. So the Dolphins and Chris Brooks finally came to terms on an injury settlement. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky for the Dolphins and Chris Brooks. Even if they wanted to bring him back into the fold, they technically can't. After the injury settlement, and because it is the timing of it. So Chris Kaufman at CK Parrott on X, or formerly known as Twitter, he put down in a tweet, NFL rules state Miami is not allowed to bring Chris Brooks back until 3 weeks have passed beyond the number of weeks used to calculate the settlement. For example, if his settlement is 4 weeks' pay, Miami could sign him back in week 8. But meanwhile, he is now a free agent and he can sign anywhere. So personal opinion, I think we're saying goodbye to Chris Brooks. That man is not going to wait 8 weeks to go back onto the Dolphins practice squad. He would be foolish to do so unless he truly is hurt and that concussion is going to keep him out for a long period of time. Then maybe he can come back. But the fact that the team and him reached an injury settlement that makes him now an unrestricted free agent, he can sign anywhere. So, long and the short, Chris Brooks most likely will be out of Miami for good. He'll be likely landing somewhere else. I don't believe on any other team's 53, but he will go on to a practice squad, I think, over the next week or two. And if the Dolphins do want him back, they would have to pluck him off that practice squad to bring him back to the fold to Miami. But if you pluck a player off the practice squad, he goes to the 53. It's not like you're bouncing around practice squad to practice squad. You got to sign him to the active roster. So, good luck to Chris Brooks. The Miami Dolphins running back room is perfectly fine. I don't foresee any reason why they need Chris Brooks. I believe personally that he was going to beat out Jeff Wilson, but that obviously is not the case, especially after that injury against Washington. All right, let's get into the crux of the week and what is leading up to Week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. At Hard Rock Stadium, kickoff 1 p.m., a sweltering 95 degrees is what projected temperature is going to look like, which means even though the Jaguars play in Florida, they play in northern Florida, they have to travel south and stand on that sideline with it being piping hot and sunny. So the Dolphins will have some advantage right off the bat. So this game opened at 3.5-point favorites for the Miami Dolphins. If you are interested in gambling, or if you are gambling, you pretty much know how this all kind of plays out. It opened at 3.5, and right now the Miami Dolphins are sitting at 3-point favorites, so there is money going in on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Money lines on the Dolphins at 86%. The spread, 74% of the money on the Dolphins, and the over is getting 56% of the money. So it was interesting to see with the amount of money going on the Dolphins, they're kind of inching that line down to try to entice more bets on the Jaguars. So take that with a grain of salt, or however you want to take it. Let me give you my thoughts leading up to Week 1. First and foremost, this is important to start with a win. Obviously, you're sitting there going, well, yeah, no kidding, Tom. It's important to start with a win. It's important to start with a win to get you off to A, the fast start, and B, you're welcoming your division rival 3 days later. So getting out of this game, unscathed with major injuries is huge. Getting out of this game with a win is huge. Getting that momentum going into that game on Thursday night against a division opponent. I'm not going to say rival because rivalries mean that they go back and forth exchanging wins. The Bills have dominated the Dolphins for the last 5 years, so something's got to give, and the Dolphins have to win Jacksonville and then gear up to beat Buffalo, because if they can get off to that 2-0 start, they get sort of a mini bye week right away with 10 days off, and then a start time of 4:05 p.m. in Seattle for Week 3. So this is big. This is very big. And, one big takeaway for me also when looking at this matchup, Mike McDaniel's not going to help himself here. The secondary for the Jaguars, a little rough, I guess would be a good word to say it. They were not good last year. They lost their best corner back to the Rams. That is Darius Williams. He was with Jacksonville for the past 3-4 years, and now he is back with the Rams, where he played with Jaylen Ramsey. But we will not see him Sunday on the sideline. So the Jaguars are going to be marching out. Let me pull this up here. Jaguars depth. And sorry about that. I lost it I had it up and then I lost it. All right, here we go. Their cornerbacks. Tyson Campbell, had a not great year. They picked up a Darnell Savage from the Packers, who he's a decent player, but he's not who he used to be. And then Ronald Darby. Yeah, that guy, Ronald Darby, who started a career, I believe, in Buffalo. He is there as well. Antonio Johnson and Andre Sisco are the two safeties. I think Mike McDaniel won't be able to help himself, and he's going to be throwing the ball on that first drive of the game. Obviously, depending on if Jacksonville gets the ball first, he'll dictate what's going on there after what Jacksonville does. But I think he's going to throw a ton. And the reason I think that, with the Heat getting up in that game early, scoring points on that opening possession, forcing the issue on Jacksonville, is only going to make the second half a lot tougher for the Jags, and that's when you're going to club them over the head with a ground game. But I think they want to get Tua in rhythm with his wide receivers. I think they want to get some explosive plays to get the fan base moving and getting as loud as they can. And the best way to do that, obviously, is hit those chunk plays to really get momentum on your side. Last little bit here on this game as a small preview. My expectations for the wide receiver room, obviously Hill and Waddle's injury news is great today. They're obviously 1-2. Dolphins' other receivers currently on the roster: Braxton Berrios, Malik Washington. I'm drawing a blank on the last one. Oh my God. Sorry guys, it was Labor Day and it has been a long day. So Dolphins, Malik Washington, Braxton Berrios. They are let's put the long and the short here. They are going to be bringing up wide receivers from the practice squad. I think they're going to do that for the first 4 weeks of the season. They picked up a couple wide receivers on the practice squad. Robbie Chosen has come back this week. Eric Uzakama and D. Eskridge. Those guys all picked up during the waiver period. Obviously, they dropped Eric Uzakama and repicked him back up. We'll be interested to see where he is from an injury perspective. We don't get the notations on the practice squad guys when it comes to the injuries. It's the guys on the 53. So if he's healthy, I think he gets pulled up. And I also believe, because of familiarity, I think the other guy getting potentially called up here is Robbie Chosen. They could alternate those guys. Let's be real. The name I forgot was Grant Dubose, because he was picked up off of waivers from the Packers, and they got him on the 53. So right now they have Hill, Waddle, and Braxton Berrios starting as the slot wide receiver. Grant Dubose is backing up Tyreek Hill. Malik Washington is backing up Braxton Berrios. That's the only 5 they're carrying at the moment. That makes me a little nervous, but they could start those 5 guys this week against the Jaguars and see how things play out. They could make that call up to Robbie Chosen or Eric Uzakama. I think in the end, Eric Uzakama is going to be back on the 53 in the long run. I think they're going to want him back as long as he's healthy enough to play, because he brings that extra little element to the offense. The other piece for me is the usage out of the tight ends. I think this is going to be an eye-opening game for the Dolphins and the type of personnel they're going to run. You're going to see a lot of 12 personnel, so that's running back, 2 tight ends on the field. One of those tight ends, of course, is going to be Jonnu Smith. They can do a lot of different things with Jonnu. Durham Smythe, we're going to see him, and Julian Hill, who is our blocking tight end. Obviously, Tanner Connor is also in the mix. They like his speed. They like his ability. They praised him at the end of last week, they being Mike McDaniel, and how much Tanner Connor has improved. The teammates have seen how much he's improved. So we're going to see a lot of 12 personnel. I think we're going to see some 22 personnel, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. Having the mix of Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, Jaylen Wright on the field at the same time with 2 tight ends. Defenses, particularly Jacksonville's, that's going to slow their edge rushers down. Josh Hines Allen, he changed his name. He didn't want to keep the same name anymore. He's a dynamic pass rusher. right? So is Trayvon Walker. Both of those guys had great years last year. They're going to want to pin their ears back and try to get to Tua. I think they'll have some frustration because the Dolphins are going to run a lot of draws. They're going to run a lot of swing passes, quick passing, obviously from Tua, getting that ball out of his hand fast, let the wide receivers do the work with anticipation on his throws. It's going to be fun. I am so excited, and we're back, folks. Football is back. And we don't want it any other way. Miami Dolphins football from beginning of September till the middle of February of Miami Dolphins football. Hopefully will continue with week 1 all the way through the Super Bowl. So, with that being said, we got shows all week. Tuesday night, we have Marissa Marino and Jason Sarney with their Tuesday night show. Wednesday, you're going to get the cast of characters from DolphinsTalk.com. Mike Oliva, myself, Big E, hopefully you're feeling better, buddy, as well as Josh and Aaron, the brothers from the same exact mother and now the same exact town. Both of those guys, so all 5 of us, we are going to go through the schedule and give our final record predictions for the Miami Dolphins this season. To give you a little hint of what's to come, I don't think you're going to see many of us picking less than 8 wins, and I don't think you're going to see many of us picking more than 12. So, give you an idea. It's going to be a fun conversation. Always is. A lot of back and forth, a lot of disagreements on what games are going to be won or lost. So be sure to check that out as well. Also, go to DolphinsTalk.com each and every day for all the latest Miami Dolphins news and information. Be sure to follow me on social media on X at DolphinsTalkTom. The main account is at DolphinsTalk. We look forward to talking with you for the rest of the week. Fins up. Let's go.
Thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. Be sure to visit DolphinsTalk.com every day for all of your latest Miami Dolphins news.